Shane Sabuni, along with my good buddy, the Honorable Jeff. And this week was, in case you missed it or don't have internet, or in case you have no idea how you're listening to this, was the release of the Snyder Cut. Back in 2017, we got a version of Justice League um, done by where it was filmed by mostly by well, it was filmed by Zack Snyder and written by Zack Snyder, and then he was having clashes with the studio. His daughter ended up committing suicide, not over clash with the studio, I'm guessing. And he had to, he basically had to leave. He had to take time off. And when he took time off, they hired Joss Whedon to come in and, basically do the movie the way Warner Brothers wanted it. He also filmed new scenes. So, the idea was like 75% of what Whedon shot was not what Zack Snyder intended. So the set pieces are all the same. The characters are mostly the same, but huge differences in what Joss Whedon presented in 2017 and what Zack Snyder intended to present. And we finally got Zack Snyder's full vision on March 18th, so 3 days ago. And good God, is it amazing!
It's a completely different movie. Like I remember watching the original one, um, and everybody's, oh, it's terrible, it's terrible. It's not that bad. I didn't think it was as bad as people made it out to be. But after watching Zack Snyder's real version of it, Joss's version was dog shit. It really was. There's no other way to put it. It, I, I ended up because I didn't. I know you'd watched his Joss's version leading up to it. I didn't watch it until after because as soon as I got done watching Zack Snyder's, I've always been really good at remembering. So like when I recently rewatched Supernatural, because I hadn't seen the last couple of seasons, I wanted to see the whole story. I hadn't watched it since um, Jesus 2011, 2012, and I
Mm-hmm.
remembered every single scene in it. So it's not like I'm rewatching stuff and being all shocked and surprised by it. I actually remembered every scene that was in Supernatural. And when I was watching this, I got done and I'm like, was there a bunch of stuff that was changed? I remember asking you because I did not remember 99% of that movie. There were a handful of scenes where I was like, oh, okay. But for the most, and even those scenes were fleshed out to a point that made them so much better.
Yeah, they were I mean, and the very the first of all, the opening of the movie is different. The scene with Bruce Wayne talking to Aquaman is different,
Yep.
and expanded upon. But where you really feel it viscerally, first in the movie is the battle on Themyscira between the Amazons and Steppenwolf.
Right.
That scene just actually is bone chilling and shocking and startling and just thrilling all the way through. When you watch Joss Whedon's version of it, it's just a de rigueur battle scene.
Yeah. Yep. And it's funny because in Zack Snyder's cut, there were a lot of times where they would show a scene, and that scene would explain, what's going on in the movie. And Joss Whedon just changed it to a one-liner. They would cut the scene and then they would throw in a one-liner to explain it. The whole story of Darkseid and in Zack's cut, and then of course in Joss, it was Steppenwolf, which was the big bad.
Hmm.
That made so much more sense with Steppenwolf being kind of a lackey trying to win favor from Darkseid than being the big bad.
Yeah, and he didn't say mother 500 times either.
No.
In in Zack Snyder's version, and you're right. I mean, he was an outcast who was striving to get back to being where he originally was, which is the right hand of Darkseid.
Right.
And of course he had to kowtow to Darkseid's current right hand, Desaad, and there was obviously no love lost between those two at all.
Right. Right.
There's definitely a deeper story there. And the other thing is Steppenwolf is like monstrous and dominant and actually scary and strong in Zack Snyder's original vision that we finally got to see. Whereas you when you first see him in Joss Whedon's version, you're kind of like chuckling to yourself, like
Right.
he looks ridiculous. What the
Yeah, I
hell?
mean, there was really no backstory to him. He just kind of appeared, and the backstory we got was that he was the one that had that fight. I like the fact that in Zach's version, the fight was from or was from, you know, Earth's protectors, which were the Amazons, the Atlanteans, the old gods, Zeus and all that, and then also the lanterns. The fact that they brought the lanterns into it was great. I loved the fact that Zach brought in John Jones into this one. That was all stuff that wasn't in Joss's cut, and it changed the tone of the movie completely.
It did, absolutely. Yeah, the tone of the movie is completely different. Joss did a lot like I kind of want to say, kind of like if you watch Infinity War, Avengers Infinity War, and then you watch Avengers Endgame, there's a lot more humor and
Hmm.
lightheartedness in Endgame, even though people have died all over the fucking planet,
Right.
than there is in Infinity War. And it's kind of the same thing where he tried to make it, he tried to do what Marvel started doing with their movies and just went way too much humor into it. And we talked about this on Friday night, that I don't know how much of that is Joss's fault and how much of that is the studio's fault, because the
Well,
studio
considering,
was clearly fighting with Snyder over um, the tone of the films, and they had seen, what Guardians of the Galaxy had done, and then Thor Ragnarok, and and how they started injecting so much humor into their movies, and people seemed to like it. That Warner Brothers kind of wanted to do that with their films as well.
well, and I mean, Zach's version did have some humor, especially the anything that involved Barry Allen.
Hmm.
And then of course the stuff between Barry Allen and Cyborg and Barry Allen and Aquaman was humorous. I mean, that there was that's where the one-liners and the humor should have been, not throughout the entire movie.
No, and there was a couple of dry moments between Wonder Woman and Batman, or Batman and Alfred, that made me laugh too.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and there and there. So I mean, he had humor injected appropriately, I felt. And I read a review that said that Barry Allen scenes are more jarring um, in the Snyder cut than they were in the Justice League. Um, I disagree. I strongly disagree. I think they actually like helped. Um, and I think I would feel more strongly about this even if I had never seen Justice League. But I think Barry Allen's scenes of humor actually are kind of needed in that dark, grim setting where they're not needed in the Justice League. You
yeah.
know.
I think he fit a whole lot better. His character was better. I remember we were talking about it not long ago about how it just didn't feel like we got to know the characters.
Hmm.
And in Zach's version, we got to know the characters. Um, I'm still I still like Grant's version of the Flash better. Can you talk? I gotta take care of something here.
Yeah, I like Grant Gustin's version of the Flash better too, but we've not seen very much of Ezra Miller's version either. Um, However, I did like Ezra Miller's version in this one better than I did in Joss Whedon's cut that he ended up putting out. Um, and I really like how the Flash basically, well, every one of the heroes gets their moment to shine in this movie in the final battle with Steppenwolf and the parademons. However, they lose. They lose. They lose to Steppenwolf. The mother boxes are merged. Superman dies. Cyborg dies. But then the Flash goes back in time, and he saves them. So I mean, and so this is another example of where Snyder's cut actually puts real stakes there, real drama there. Um, and whereas, the Flash gets, wounded in the leg, but he still is able to summon the courage and the resolve and the wherewithal to go back in time and reset it so that the mother boxes, are not joined together, and Superman and Cyborg don't get killed right in that moment.
Well,
Um,
it wasn't
and, and,
just
and,
them that got
and,
killed,
and,
it was
and,
everybody.
and it's gonna and it's gonna and that also is a way of foreshadowing what's going to happen in the Flash movie that's based on Flashpoint, where he can realize, oh yeah, I was able to go back in time and stop this, so now I can go back in time and maybe stop my mother's murder too. you know
I'm actually more interested in seeing like a Flash movie, and I would have rather seen a different cut of Aquaman, and because I felt like Aquaman and both Wonder Womans kind of took the Joss Whedon Justice League tone.
Hmm.
I'd rather see them with the Zack Snyder tone.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wouldn't say there's any kind of about it. I mean, I told you like Aquaman like 30 minutes in, I just couldn't watch it anymore because it was too much of that stupid humor bullshit going on, and um but there also, also I think like, this movie, and even Whedon's version, to be fair, like what happened in Aquaman didn't make any sense compared to what we'd already seen that him do. I mean, there obviously is discrepancies between the movies going in. And I don't know why they didn't take that into account when they did Aquaman originally. Where he'd already met Mirror, and he'd already had like you said, he already had his trident. It was really stupid. Um, but another part of the thing with Aquaman in this movie is, there's that scene where like he goes up in the air and he's fighting the parademons, and Cyborg comes up and rescues him, and he's like, my man, right? But in Whedon's version, that's just a cool scene. In um, in Snyder's version is actually displaying teamwork between the two and a trust between Cyborg and Aquaman is just not present in Whedon's version of it.
So my cat dropped a crayon, somehow got a crayon up on my counter and dropped it into the clean dishes and has spent the last 5 minutes digging at it.
And
So that was annoying.
oh,
Um,
so would you say that it took the clean dishwater and it made it from like a gray into like a color then?
no,
No, okay. Well, I didn't know if the crayon would have changed the color of the water or not at all. So
no, I don't. I'm starting trying to figure out that, but that's she just spent the last like 5 minutes literally digging through the clean dishes. Now I gotta rewash them all. Ugh. Anyway, so um, yeah, everything about it was better. Like I like the way that I still not a fan of this version of the Flash. I would like him to be a little bit um smarter, I guess would be the word. Not the struggling through crime lab or crime school, getting into the crime lab and all that stuff, but actually being there like it is with the TV Flash. But ultimately, his character was still fun and was the lightheartedness that the movie needed. It didn't need everybody to have comedical moments.
I don't feel like um this version of the Flash or this version of Barry Allen is not smart. I just feel that he has like a social anxiety disorder of some kind,
Yeah, I mean, he's got that like boyish, like, and I mean, he even said it in both movies. He said that he's in because he just needs friends.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't know, and maybe it's because I've seen the TV version so much. And I mean, the comedy in the TV version is still a little rough, but um, I just personally I like that Barry Allen better, and maybe it'll change. I mean, to be honest, my thought process on him already changed just from Zach's cut because there we got to know more about him. We got to see more things from him, like you said, him running back in time and um, the way that he volunteered to do a lot of stuff, and and that even that moment in the beginning with the dog, when he was trying to be hired for as a dog walker,
Hmm.
gave me more appreciation for him, and I like him a little better than I did. But I still have to see a full movie of him to see if it's something that I'm going to like. I was also a little disappointed in um, the Joker's appearance. I would have
Why is
thought
that?
I would have thought it would have been a little bit better, like more modern. Like I did we need, I guess I get it. It's a continuation of Bruce Wayne's dream from, Batman versus Superman, but at the same time, was that scene really needed?
Yes, it was. It was needed because it's the only interaction that we're going to get between Batman and this Batman version of Batman and this version of the Joker. We had to have some, and that's one thing. That's something that Snyder said about it is that we needed to have he needed to have some kind of way because there's not going to be a Batman movie. That he wanted to have some kind of interaction between this version of the Batman and this version of the Joker.
Okay.
And that's just how we did it.
I mean, I
Um,
still really like Jared Leto in this in that role. I'd like to see a lot more of him.
well, I can't say you're going to see a lot more of him, but you are going to get a chance to see more of him in that role because there's another version of the Snyder Cut coming to HBO Max.
Another version? Oh God.
This this was called Gray Justice,
Gray Justice.
and it's going to be the Snyder Cut in black and white, but with an extended scene and in the nightmare between Joker and Batman.
Well, I mean, eh,
That's what I
why?
said. Oh my god! About last night when I texted you, because I'm like thrilled by that idea. I mean, what being able to watch this movie again in black and white and seeing more of and then seeing more of Jared Leto's version of the Joker, even if it's only a couple more lines or another scene, is thrilling to me. So
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
you're not excited by this idea.
I don't know that it's necessarily something that I don't know. I mean, it was already a 4 hour movie. Just add on 20 minutes and have it a 4 hour, 20-minute movie, I guess. I don't know that I'll sit through an entire 4 hours of it again.
Oh, I will.
I mean, I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great, it went from being a ho hum movie to an actual great movie. So, that I'm excited about, or that I'm glad that I watched it. And I'm glad that I watched it solely through and didn't try and break it up into hours. Although I will give Zack Snyder this. He made it to where it could easily be broken up by having the chapters in there.
Yeah, he did. Um, and his wife had said that HBO Max was going to have it broken into chapters for you, so you could be able to just kind of like jump like you'd be able to like on a DVD, but that isn't the case, at least not currently. So, um, and this was actually, I don't know how much you've read about this, Jeff, or if you've read anything about it, but this was actually supposed to be so what this was setting up at the end. So for those of you who haven't seen the Snyder Cut yet, we're spoiling everything, and you probably shouldn't listen to this until you've
Well, it's
watched it. But
good thing we got that,
but
53 minutes into the show.
20,
Spoiler alert.
23 minutes. But
Yeah.
um,
Oh yeah, yeah.
but
Yeah.
but the what Nightmare and the stuff at the end of the Snyder Cut that wasn't in the end of Joss Whedon's version was setting up basically is two more movies in what Snyder was referring to as a 5 film trilogy, starting with Man of Steel, then Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice, and then Justice League, and then two more Justice League films to come, where the second one would basically be that Darkseid subjugated the Earth because um, remember back in Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice when there's that scene where Batman sees the Flash and the Flash is telling him, coming back from the future to tell him that Lois is the key. Um, so what happens in the second movie is that Batman fails to save Lois Lane's life. Superman gets pissed off at him and turns dark. And that's where we see the nightmare happen and Superman helping Darkseid, not only because he's turned dark, but also because Darkseid's able to control him with the anti-life equation. And then in the third movie, they would have found a way to go back in time and change that and convince um, that version of Batman to save Lois's life, which for some reason he didn't do because he was in love with her. And we would also have seen um, a new version of Batman arise that is actually the son of Clark and Lois.
I am so confused.
What are you confused by?
That story is starting to get a little convoluted.
Yeah, it is. But we'd probably have hours to see play it on the screen too. You know,
Yeah, true. But
this
I
is
mean,
just a summary of what he was planning.
and yeah, I don't. Do we really need to see a dark Superman?
We do.
I don't know. He's. I mean, I know he's following a story, a comic book arc, storyline arc, but I don't know. I guess we'll have to see it play out and see how it looks.
If it ever happens, yeah.
Yeah, if it ever happens.
But I mean that's what we would have gotten in his original full vision. So, um,
I mean, it was interesting seeing in his dream having you know fighting alongside Joker alongside Slade, who we knew was there to kill him, according to uh, the dialogue that we got, which was also nice to have that Lex Luthor dialogue in this movie too, not just at an end cut scene him sitting on a ship drinking champagne.
right.
It was nice to actually see the more of the Jesse Eisenberg Luthor, and they bring in these other characters too. Like they brought in Deathstroke now, where before in the other version of in what do you call it, Justice League, um,
Yeah.
in that version, we didn't really get anything new. In this version, we got John Jones, we got Deathstroke, we got some more information about Luther.
Yeah, that fight that post credit scene in that that you're talking about that was expanded in this movie was supposed to be setting up the Batman with Deathstroke being the main villain against Bruce Wayne in the Batman before that was scrapped and Robert Pattinson took over the role from Ben Affleck.
I mean,
And so now, so now this might be the only time we're gonna see Joe Manganiello's version of Deathstroke.
uh, unfortunately, but it was it made more sense. I mean, I remember seeing that cut scene at the end of the original movie and just being like, okay, Lex is out. He's got a new play toy. Um, but it didn't really it made more sense in Zack Snyder's version.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, everything did, really.
Yeah, it literally,
I,
you're right. Everything did. Every fight scene, every character development, the stories, the backstories, everything made more sense. Like,
well, the decision to bring back Superman even made more sense because in Justice League, it was that basically like the world needs Superman back because the world's in mourning, and Batman and Wonder Woman are like arguing about like whether they have the ability to lead the team in Superman's absence, which Batman would never have that kind of fucking lack of confidence.
right, exactly, exactly.
And in Justice League, it's because like I mentioned earlier, Steppenwolf is so much stronger and more powerful than he is in um, Whedon's version, and there's no, they need Superman in order to defeat him.
Right,
So I mean, it's and we also see like an actual finish to Steppenwolf where um, the combination of Superman destroying his axe and Aquaman spearing him, and then Wonder Woman coming cutting off his head, actually, kills him rather than his parademons turning on him because oh my god, he's fearing something.
right, exactly. Yeah,
So,
and um, the other part of that, they like Cyborg. Um, all we had, there was this whole like what 10, 15-minute scene with him showing that he's a superior athlete, showing that he's a genius because he hacked into the school records and everything. And they took that entire, section out, and instead of us actually learning about Vic that way, um, we see him on a screen and Alfred says, "Oh yeah, I found this guy too. He's a genius and a superior athlete." So it was more believable in Zach's version.
Yeah, I feel I in a lot of ways I feel like Cyborg was the star of this movie,
Oh yeah, yeah,
where
yeah.
where he was barely an afterthought in Whedon's version. You know.
Well, and in Whedon's version, he was, his dad lived. In this version, it made more sense why he would be there um, trying to get into the Unity.
Hmm.
In Joss's version, it was like, okay, why are you sacrificing yourself? Well, now I know why, because his dad sacrificed himself so they could track the thing, and he wanted revenge for his dad. It made more
Yep.
sense. It just everything made more sense. The um the whole Aquaman thing, seeing that fight with Mira and Steppenwolf, it again, there was so much that was cut out of it. That fight between those two was good to begin with, and then Aquaman coming in saving, and fighting Steppen whatever, um, and fighting him made more sense. Literally everything made more sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you're right. I mean Aquaman. It was like, no, I don't think I'm going to join you. And then and then like he just shows up at at the battle um at the harbor.
Right.
It just, yeah, it did not make any sense in the original version at all. And the thing is, and the other thing is that the timing was different too, um where it seemed like it literally seemed like it was like a few scenes later, and maybe that's because it is, that actually happens with Aquaman, whereas there's like a lot more space between their interactions in um, Snyder's version.
The only thing that I really question is this kind of does away with the entire Aquaman movie, like Zack Snyder's version, because in the Aquaman movie, the whole thing is his quest for the his mother's trident. And in this one, I can't remember the guy's name, but he just kind of throws it at his feet and says, "You need to pick this up and be the man you're supposed to be, or whatever." And then, he still doesn't have it until that battle with Steppenwolf, and then all of a sudden he's got the trident.
Doesn't he have the trident at the harbor in Joss Whedon's version too? I
Yeah,
thought he did.
he does, but that's the one thing. I mean, when they did a standalone movie of how he got his trident,
Yeah.
um, that's the one thing that makes more sense is not him getting it in Justice League, him actually already having it in Justice League.
Right. No, I had said, yeah, and that's what I said earlier, is that it didn't make sense in either version of it.
Right.
They just it's stupid. They and I mean, it was great to see Volko in this version, but at the same time, yeah, it doesn't, neither version lines up with what happened
In
in the
Aquaman.
Aquaman movie
Right,
at
because
all.
the whole point of the Aquaman movie was him reclaiming his throne and getting the trident and all that stuff. And in Justice League, he didn't have it until Volko gave it to him.
No,
He didn't want to fight until. So I mean, basically, what I'm saying is that there was no need for the Aquaman movie when it comes right down to it, because we already explained how he got his.
yeah, I mean, and that's why I said the other, that this I would like to see a version, a movie of, focusing on this Aquaman.
Right.
Not and leading off from the events of this, where he's got his trident, but he's still going to try to claim, go to claim his throne from Org.
Right.
Where instead of just, and that's that, so and I'd like a version, and I'd like to see a version, I mean, a film about this version of Wonder Woman, on Themyscira or something like that, rather than the bullshit that we saw
In the two movies we did see.
in the two movies we did see. Yeah, you know.
I would like to see her going forward, not back in time. Like now Steppenwolf literally claimed to have killed the entire island. And we know
Hmm.
that's not true, but it would be nice to see a movie where she returns to the island, um, to find out if he was lying or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, anyway, this is I don't know, I shouldn't say anyway, but I definitely would recommend this movie to anybody.
Like,
Uh,
yeah, it's not even a second guess for me.
no.
I've already recommended it to everybody. I got done watching it and I text like 30 people and it's like, you gotta watch this movie.
Yeah, well, I mean, I remember on Friday, like I IM'd you and said, um, the new Justice League is wondrous, and you're like, did you watch the whole thing? I was like, yep.
Well, and seriously, I wasn't planning on watching it all in one sitting, but once I started watching it, I just couldn't stop.
Yeah,
So I got it through in one sitting. I mean, 4 hours is a commitment, yes, but it's worth it. It's worth it on every single level.
yeah, I completely agree. I wasn't actually able to watch it all four at once because was like doing other things. I like basically like watched an hour at a time, but I did watch it all like in one day.
Yeah, I did, because after you mentioned it, in about the first 30 minutes, I started watching on my lunch break, and then I watched, 15 more minutes on my second break, and then after work, I sat down and I just watched the rest of it all the way through.
Yeah,
And it was worth every second of it.
yeah, it's fantastic. And I am going to watch it again, and then I'm going to watch it again when it's in grayscale. So, it's just one of those. I watched this movie and I'm like, and then I've read some reviews like one guy said it's this it's still a mess just a million years long, and I'm like, and I read that review and he had nothing positive to say about it whatsoever, and then he ended the review by saying, I'm not going to say which one's better, but at least but I'll tell you this, at least one gets done shorter. And it's like,
So basically,
did
he's a popcorn fan.
and I was like, did you actually watch the movie? Because how could you have watched this and not have anything positive to say about it whatsoever? I mean, every single scene is a work of art. So even if you're going to complain about the length or, the visual effects not being as polished as they would be in a theatrical release, or other criticisms I've heard that I felt were fair, um, then at least you can't just watch it and say, oh, he drug this out for no reason. No, he didn't. He
No,
gave an actual story behind it.
he drugged this out because instead of having, your main characters on their third and fourth standalone movie before Justice League, he had to explain the main characters in this movie.
Right.
So
Um,
if you're talking about a time commitment, like that one guy saying was talking, we could have had a standalone Flash, two standalone Wonder Womans, a couple of standalone Aquaman movies before this one,
and a standalone cyborg movie too.
and a standalone Cyborg movie to explain the characters. But because we didn't have that, they had to get right into the whole Justice League, and DC didn't want to spend the decade developing these characters like Marvel did. They had to explain the characters in the movie
Yeah.
so that
And
you
then
actually cared about them.
yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you. And then he also said, this is or there's so much slow motion. It's like, yeah, it's called storytelling. I mean the scene with Aquaman, walking, saving that guy, and then like walking through the dock, drinking the whiskey, and then doing a slow motion to a cool song.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that. That's art. If he just walks through the
And
dock and drinks the whiskey and jumps off, then that's just then you're just showing him do something really stupid.
that scene was in both movies.
Yeah, it's
So that's an unfair criticism. The other part of what the slow motion, that was done for a reason because that is, Flash. He's in his Flash time.
hmm
So that was done for a reason as well. That's not like it's just to explain that he's moving so fast that everybody else is in slow motion.
and just about every other just about every great action movie since The Matrix has used some form of slow motion.
Yeah, usually
You know,
walking away from an explosion.
yeah. I mean, or showing the bullets flying, or so I mean it really is just a guy that just wanted to criticize everything instead of just like paying attention and being like, I even Melissa like hadn't didn't know really have an interest in watching it, but like she would like walk by while I was watching, and I said and I told her about this. I said you saw what was going on the screen. You saw how much art it was. She's like, yeah, it was definitely work of art when I was every time I walked by and saw it on the screen. So it's just like the guy had nothing positive to say, and I don't get people like that.
Well, he's
You know.
complaining about investing 4 hours of his time to get the story that would have taken probably 20 hours of his time if they'd come out in their own standalone movies.
Right. And the thing, and also the other thing complaining about it is, it's 4 hours and 2 minutes, including the credits.
Right.
And how often do people sit down and stream 4 episodes of an hour of a 1 hour show?
Yeah, I mean,
For in a binge watch.
yeah,
It's
I mean
it's
that happens daily with a lot of people. They'll sit
right.
down and run through three, 4 episodes, hour-long episodes.
Right, and it's just gotten more prevalent in the last year with the COVID stuff going on.
Right.
I mean, it's something people do all the time. So, yeah, 4 hours is a big time commitment, but it's no more of a time commitment than it would be for you to sit down and watch 5 episodes of ER. You
Did
know,
did this same guy complain about Endgame being 3.5 hours long?
I was thinking the same thing, but I don't know because I didn't want to go back and read any of his stuff because I was just like, you're just like a bitter dude. I don't get
Yeah,
it.
because I
So,
mean, Endgame, Jesus Christ, Endgame was, and that was in a theater. That was a commitment in a theater. This at least I could pause it and run to the bathroom and not miss
right.
anything.
Right, and then the other criticism that that you and I talked about on Friday night was that people were saying there's no way this or not really criticism, but people were saying it's good that it was on HBO Max. There's no way this could ever have been released in a theater, and I
Bullshit.
was like, and I and I
Endgame
looked at
did.
that. Yeah, well, first of all, Endgame did. There's 4 hours. It really is a long time for a theatrical release. I do understand that, but you could also do an intermission. Or the other thing is that they could have done what Kill Bill did, where to me the natural breaking point of this movie is when they're discussing bringing Superman. They're discussing about bringing Superman back, and they show that image, or Cyborg displays that image of Superman in the hero pose, and then to me you just fade to black there,
Yep, and then
and then
come
and then
back with the
and then you open the second movie with that same kind of discussion, just like you would in a comic book,
right.
and then you go then they go and they start working on that,
Well,
and
and there too, I mean that whole conversation actually made bringing Superman back make more sense.
you mean because the whole team is discussing it and not just Batman and Wonder Woman.
Yeah, I mean, well, and all agreeing on it and realizing that he's the key and all this. There was so much about it that was, and even even the part where he does come back and doesn't have his memory, but then he goes to the farm. He didn't all of a sudden just have his memory back. It came back over time, which was explained better. Is literally every scene in the movie was explained better in this cut.
I will say this though about Whedon's version versus Snyder's version is I like the idea that Whedon had of Batman having Lois Lane there as kind of a backup plan, rather than her just happening to be there because she was visiting the site.
Yeah, but see, they explained that better in they explained it better in Zach's version because it wasn't the first time she was at the site, and the cop even said to her, "Oh, this is a daily thing," you know. So
No, 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 he did, and then but then she also said that she was that was gonna be her last time as well.
right, so it was just dumb luck that they were doing their stupidity that
That that's
on her
that's what I mean.
last time, but
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. It was too kind of too coincidental in that verse. That's really the only part of it. I think I think that Joss got better than Snyder did.
yeah,
You
see,
know.
and it to me it made more sense because Um, I know that Bruce knows about Lois Lane, but is he really going to be like, okay, we're going to bring Superman back from the dead, but I need to make sure that we have Lois Lane here in case he goes dark. It
That's true.
to
Yeah,
me, it
that's true.
made
That's
more
true.
sense in Zach's version that she just happened to be there and showed up at the right time, as opposed to Batman having this master plan of, hey, this is what we're going to do in case this happens.
I am so glad. Speaking of the scene where he actually does come back, or they're actually where they're doing the where they're doing the jump start to get him back, that fucking lasso scene got cut out because I do not need that. That was a just more dumb humor that should not have been in there.
Right. Yeah,
You know?
that I agree with. There was, there were some other things too, like that. Even that fight scene was more on a grand scale. It made more sense.
Yeah, because we saw, and really, and really, it's also a great emphasis on how much more powerful Superman actually is than pretty much anybody else because he overloads those gauntlets that
Right.
Alfred made. You know.
Yeah, he overloaded the gauntlets. He, really took it to everybody. And even when all three were attacking him at the same time, he was still just standing tall and took everyone out.
Yeah,
Um,
and I like I like how um, they display on how he is almost as fast as Barry Allen.
yeah, where he like um, that whole scene with them with Barry just getting out of the way at the last second, and missing Superman's hits. That's where you're saying. I mean, they're both ridiculously fast, but Barry's just a touch faster.
Yep.
And then that scene where he sidestepped Barry and Barry took out Aquaman, I was glad that was in there because even that was one of those little comedical moments that
Hmm.
helped explain Barry a lot more, helped explain the relationship he had with the other people. Um,
Yeah.
there was a lot to love about this, but man, we've already talked about it for 40 minutes, it's 41 minutes, so
Yeah.
I don't know. And you have anything else on it?
Um, no, just watch it if you haven't. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, definitely watch it. Definitely not even if you don't want to watch it. What do we got next? Is Kong coming this week or is it next week?
No, it's next week. I'm not sure what we're doing next.
Huh. Well, I guess we'll have to think about it.
Yeah, because well, let me double check that because I thought it was like the 31st or something. Let me double check.
Oh, didn't Winter Soldier come out this week? Or what came out on the 19th?
It did. Yeah, the first episode came out this week.
Oh, they didn't drop the whole season at once.
No, they don't
Okay.
do that. Yeah, March 31st is when it's coming out. So I guess that's what Wednesday? Next Wednesday?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, we'll have to think of something for next week. But that's all I've got. So, give about 10 minutes here and we'll be back to some wrestling news
All right, that sounds great.
uh,
We'll see you next time.
in 10 minutes.